get ready for this one. You might not actually be able to handle this one. Are you ready, Kassad? This will blow your mind, mate. s1mple being really good at shooting people in CSGO doesn't make his opinions right. Oh, what am I even talking about? I've lost my mind. You know what? At this point in time, bring in a padded cell. Like, see you guys, I'm off. He shoots people the best with the crosshair, so he must be right about everything. How much is the tip, s1mple? Vado, $4. He's right again. $4 is the tip. Don't bother calculating that. Right, this is going to be another episode of Hot Take Point Made. By the way, one thing we'll actually do, I'm not going to do it on this episode, I haven't put in the extra effort or homework to do it now, but we should actually in the future, especially maybe because like CSGO's ending soon, maybe we'll do a special one then. We should do like some sort of a comedic review of what the actual hot takes were on some of the past episodes and go through like which ones like, because the joke would be, half the comedy would be, you either like joke that it did turn out that way and like skew, like do an angle on it, or we just find the ones that really did turn out to be legit or whatever. Like, for example, like half of them actually don't even work anymore because we did all those ones where it was like, yeah, well, in 4 years, this guy will be the GOAT of CSGO. And it's like, oh, we didn't know CSGO was going to be over in like 3 months now, did we? Like, to be fair, those ones weren't our fault. And then also, the other reason, Kassad, it's not even really true, but I'll pretend it is. The other reason why we're not going to do it now is because obviously it seemed like we're picking on Maui if we did a very recent sort of poll of all the hot takes, you know, because, you know, he has had a good time of it recently, that's all. Everyone hits a bad streak, even Phil Ivey in poker, Maui, you have to understand, gets bad beats, you know, gets a bad run of cards. It's all good, it's all good, it's all gravy. So
for people that don't understand, that's the liquid take, the big take, the, you know, all these things.
Exactly. There was some bad ones. Let's just say that. Let's just put that out there. All I'm going to say is this as well. Like Maui's, it's just timing that he gets unlucky on Kassad. Like, for example, he did have that massive debate with Richard Lewis that actually like tier 1 CS is really good. And then immediately after that, Team Liquid, one of his teams, he was using an example, did lose to literally anyone, just like anyone who could enter a server. Yeah. So, you know, like that might be one of the craziest streaks of bad luck I've ever seen, by the way, because that was even like a team that you wouldn't expect to just lose to nobodies. They were on like a really good sort of like track record, right? So anyway, here's the thing: I'll actually tease for people in this episode. Obviously, we like to like space out the hot takes. I've got an angle, I think, for a hot take that's going to be hilarious because in my own inimitable style, basically what I'm going to do is play with the subversive idea of what a hot take is to the casual fan base, and we'll just see where we go with that. So does anyone have like a normal hot take to start us off? Has someone got like, you know, the entree hot take, as it were?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Come on. So everybody knows the, you know, Astralis story didn't qualify and all this shit, right? Come on. And my hot take is that Device made a bigger mistake coming back to Astralis and leaving for NiP.
That's actually pretty good. That's pretty good. I can't lie. I like that. That's good.
Basically, he went to NiP. He tried to do his thing, right? He ended up. We all remember how that turned out, and then it was a big move back, and then he's one of the all-time greats. Like we can agree to that, sure. One, right? He won 4 majors, multiple. You know, one of the people who defined the opening role. Like, you know, don't count, you know, s1mple because they are just one of a kind, right? But he defined the opening role. Many, if not like 80% of the oppers that are now on the spotlight watch Device's demos, right? And Device is still good. He's not like he's like an old dude, like 32 years old and trying to make it. Like he's what, 26, 27? And he decided to go back to Astralis. I assume there was some sort of a plan that he was lured into, you know, to go back and we're going to bring this guy, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then nothing happened. Obviously, they brought in Hunden and, you know, all these, you know, unknown players that are still keeping Zipniks, and it's just a mess right now. He's not going to be a part of the last major after all this thing, and he's still good. Yeah, like, he's still good. And I can 100%, you know, see that the bigger mistake was coming back to Astralis than leaving Astralis for NiP. And the second part of that take is that if there is any, like, you know, sense in FaZe, they will go and cash out and just buy him and get him instead of Brokey. Because he is the players they need. Device can still deliver for 2 more years. Sure. Let's say it like that. And that's going to be worth the money. Right now, they have the young core of Robs and Twists, right? That can, you know, obviously Rain is, you know, on his way out too. But, you know, they can actually substitute Brokey for him for the next 2 years and still getting the chance for titles and probably titles. But
By the way,
far, I think, yeah, device definitely biggest mistake.
By the way, on the latter point there, that is actually something I did make the point of at the time. But obviously, I think people get by now that device moving to NiP and then back to Astralis doesn't seem to have anything to do with like whether he thinks the team is going to be the best. Like he's clearly making the decision based on other factors that, quite frankly, like it's not that anyone really even fucks them. It's just that we all get that when you've won that much, you can sort of do what you want. You've written your own ticket at that point in time, haven't you? So what I would say is, I actually also suggested the same thing when he went to NiP. I was like, mate, if you just go to an international team, like we're supposed to believe he was, like it wasn't just for the girlfriend thing, then the logic is like, why didn't he just join FaZe back then? Like to me, it was like, mate, imagine if he'd have been with Carrigan the whole time. And by the way, how spicy would that GOAT discussion have gotten if Device joined back with Carrigan and then won another major? That would be like, oh, that would get fucking spicy as a motherfucker. Then the other angle is, I just like the way that is actually a banger hot take. I can't lie about it, but it's so out of left field because here's what's sad. I'm normally the guy who, like, it doesn't matter even if, like, in the room it's like, Thorin, though, we're all feeling sorry for Device right now. We're not supposed to say something like that. Normally I'm the guy's like, yeah, but it is a good point, you know, like, this is accurate. But even I hadn't thought of that angle because obviously the whole thing is ever since he came back to Astralis, you're supposed to think, like, he's suffered enough. Let's just all leave Device alone. But kassad's right, technically, if you're ranking his mistakes, Maui, looking at how it's going now in Astralis and how CSGO is going to end, he's right. That of all the mistakes he's made, this is actually the worst one so far because, quite frankly, when you watch the RMR, even like him and BlameF are just really good players, mate. Like, they haven't done anything wrong as far as I can tell, but they have absolutely been made a fool of, and CS:GO is just going to end on such a shit note for them. Like, there's whatever in it. Sort of right, yeah. I agree.
I can't even really argue with this because it's just like the current state of Astralis has been so poor that like not qualifying for this major. We had the hot take a while ago. I think Kassad might have had it that Astralis wasn't going to qualify to the next.
I think that
majors.
was mine, but there was only.
That was yours.
Obviously, I didn't know there would be only one more major.
Only one.
It's worked out for me on that one, yeah.
Yeah, and I was ready to defend Astralis then because I was kind of like, you know, with BlameF and Device, I thought they'd put it together, and I was actually, I think, mostly referring to the second major. I was like, you know, by 9 months after you said that, I thought they would get it together. But like, what they showed at this one is pretty depressing because it's hard for me to even defend Glaive as much now because the calling doesn't even seem as strong anymore, and I don't like the calling.
You need pieces to call good.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, with Buzz and Zipnix, it's hard to probably put together the structure you would want to if you're Glaive. But yeah, with Device making this move for himself, it feels like he had the pick of the litter. He could have gone to so many different teams, and that's the biggest problem with this. That if he did decide, you know, say some other fringe top 15 team, like any of them could have wanted him, and anybody would have taken him. And so to go to Astralis when you already knew the state that they were in, like, yeah, that is a pretty bad move on his end.
Also, by the way, I'll just throw this out there. Here's one thing I don't get about Glaive or fucking Device in terms of like what we're hearing. There might be the speculation as to why they made their decisions, which as far as I can tell is where they want to live and what their family life is, right? Here's one thing I find bizarre, dude. If I was one of these orgs, especially like a big team that wants to get one of these players, how about this? Just tell them, if you join, our new base is Copenhagen. We'll make our fucking boot camp from there. You can live there. Bloody hell, if the other players want, they can move there. Like, why isn't that not just an offer at this point in time if you get like one of the biggest free agents ever? Because if that can't really be the factor, surely, like, they could join NiP or Astralis or FaZe or Maus, and it's like, yeah, but I only want to live in Copenhagen. Like, that can't be the fucking deciding factor on your CS career, surely, guys. That just seems like nonsense. Like, we can fix that. Everyone can get a plane ticket. Come on, Kassad, what are you going to say?
Man, the thing is, like, if he went for Astralis I am assuming it's not because of the Denmark and Copenhagen thing. Like, there are so many teams. Just go, just go for, like, ends.
Yeah,
that's a stable org. Yeah. Healthy organization, right? You just knock on the door, message NATO, like, listen, I'm interested. What can you offer me? If that's not good, go to Maus, right? What can you offer me? If that's not good, go to Liquid. What can you offer me? Yeah,
like a Liquid.
Go to FaZe, you know, just ask. And he decided to go for Astralis, a failed project at the, you know, after they lost all these players. They're like, I feel like they are being hostages by Zipnix at this point. Like, just, you know, pay the price and let him go.
Yeah, seriously.
Just pay the price, whatever it is, because it costs you double that because you kept him. Now you're paying him this salary. You are not on the major. You don't have the sticker money. The sponsor might leave you soon after you don't get so many results. And then what did you accomplish? You lost much more than you expected. Just pay the money, get rid of it, and get another player, and maybe try again.
I've got a segue hot take that does sort of build off this premise, though, because here's the thing, right? Understand, it is a hot take, but even I don't 100% believe it. Essentially, one of the things I've learned also you can do on the hot take show is, quite frankly, what most people call journalism, even though this is bad journalism, which is you just take like a fact and by omitting the right part and skewing it the right way, it seems like you're saying something, but you don't have to actually believe it or not. Like, obvious classic example would be you just, like, if you look at the results of glaive, half the problem with when you look at the guy is, right, what you really have to do is do things like, it's actually, if people don't know, one of the most complicated things about using the eye test for an IGL is you'd have to like watch the game specifically for that one purpose. Like, I remember doing this with MSL back in the day, where I would have to watch like his bad North lineups, and I couldn't watch like a normal game, because what I had to do was think like, right, remember, some of these players suck, so I'm not actually thinking, do they win the round? I'm thinking like, did he even get them in a position where it made sense how he used this guy, how they got onto the site? So anyway, to bring it all back, right, if people just look at Glaive's results, obviously they're really bad. I mean, we've made a million hot takes on this show, but like, if you rank him, he wouldn't even be a top Danish IGL, never mind IGL. Like, a lot of the prestige has fallen away in these last years. Well, along those lines, I'm just going to say, if you look at when these people had each other, actually right now, it's funny that everyone dissed zonic so hard when he left and went to Vitality, because dude, it looks right now like zonic was a massive part of Glaive's success. Because think about this, I'm not even talking about the era when they won the majors, 2018 and 2019. Go past that to when they had the online period in 2020 and Glaive went out of the lineup. They were still winning, by the way, without him. Like, they were doing really well in that Pro League. Then he came back. He didn't even come back as IGL. Megas stayed as IGL. They won that Pro League season. Then they eventually brought in, like, still had Dessa tag, if you remember. Then they got Zipnix back after, and they kept winning them. They won a couple of online tournaments, like DreamHack Europe or whatever. And if you remember, they were mixing it right up every time with Na'Vi and Vitality. They were still one of the best teams in the world, if people forget, at the end of 2020. And then what happened was, remember, then Device left in 2021. They were still actually pretty decent. Like, they were only like 7th to 8th, but they'd lost their best player. And if you remember, the first LAN, Cologne, they had that like miracle top 4. Like, what the fuck? Out of nowhere. That was, remember, this is no Device. They lost the MVP of their team. Then after that, with fucking Bobski instead of Glaive wasn't even there. They qualified for the major at the RMR again with Megas calling. Like, and then when zonic left, that's when everything went absolutely to shit. Literally, if you just go and look at the timeline, like, when zonic was there, the joke is you can even take out like the best names. They still had like a level. There was a standard to where they played at. So I'm not really making this, like I say, as a totally good faith hop. I don't think this means Glaive sucked or like you never could have done any of that stuff. But I think it is pretty telling when you just shade it that way. When you look at like who was there, who wasn't, what happened, what didn't happen. Like, it does look like a lot of the rot set in. Like, essentially the second zonic went out the door, which is why I'll bring it back. I've always thought that actually in the modern day, the reason why no one can have that interesting discussion of like Carrigan versus Glaive is because everyone forgets to insert the word zonic. Like, as soon as you say zonic, it's a great convo again. Everyone acts like he was just Glaive on his own, the whole time.
I think the thing why that happened is because not just because zonic is some sort of mastermind, just god or something. It's because he had a system that was working for those players, and that's something that I tried to sell to EG when I was having all those 10 interviews. Like, the system that's gonna work the way that it's not dependent on one or two players. Like, if you swap a player out, the system will be in place, and you just keep producing good results. Sometimes it's gonna be much better. Sometimes it's gonna be like a little less, right? You can have ups and downs, but you have a constant good results, and that's what happened with zonic. He had that, and then they, like you said, they keep switching players. S-Attack was there, Glaive was on the lead, Magisk was an in-game leader, but the system stayed the same. Yep. Everything, and that's why it worked. And then he left. There is no more system. It all fell apart, and this is what you get. Even Glaive is struggling. Like, with his calls, he probably has a different coach. He's a different mindset with a different system, and he's like, yeah, this is not the same thing like it was before. It's new, it's different, it's something that he doesn't like, on top of the fact that the pieces there are less than what we expect. And then overall, you get these results, right? So it's up to them to actually get it to the same page between the coach and the IGL and the whole team. And like right now, thank God they have a lot of time, right? I mean, they qualify for Dallas, but who cares about that? Like, they have to think about the, post-summer when CS2 comes in and whatever the fuck happens after that. They have to think about that. Now, thinking about Dallas is just, whatever, right? You're just delaying your problems. So overall, zonic definitely had something good. But, that kind of cancels out the thing because Vitality now has a fucking shit T side. like one of the worst T sides together with C9 in tier 1 scene. Actually, I'm doing a lot of betting, right? And I'm genuinely scared of betting on Vitality simply because T side. Like, they need double digits on their CT side to actually have a chance. Did you see a game against Astralis? 14-5, 14, then it was 14-14. There was a couple more games. They had a good CT side and they crumbled. Like, simply because Apex is not following, or he's not the same page with Zonic, and the T side looks terrible. Terrible. And then the only map that actually look good is Nuke. So I guess Apex feels good there and he feels like more comfortable. Even if he in his like, you know, movements and everything that's happening, like his like reactions and body language are saying to me that he feels good on Nuke, but the other maps he just lost. And then the T sides are terrible.
Okay.
The whole thing with the Astralis gold lineup is that basically everybody fell off after they left it. I mean, Device is the only guy to me that has proven that he can still do very well individually. So it does seem like the whole thing with that whole Astralis lineup is just like you take one piece away and for some reason it's all falling apart. It's like it is like a house of cards for some reason where even though I respect that Glaive was definitely doing a lot as an in-game leader there, yeah, you can make the argument that you take away Zonic and it falls apart. And yeah, I guess you can make the argument that without Device they were still all right, but it's just even with just Device leaving, like they still weren't reaching even remotely the same heights with him. And so I think it was just a situation where that team just had so much chemistry, and also they just had the mental edge over Liquid, so that's why they were winning so many grand finals on top of that. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I just think like it just was like for some reason everything had to fit together perfectly with that lineup.
Hot Take Point Made is brought to you in association with FreezePipe. Now, on this show, we love hot takes, irritating each other, and we're here for all the smoke. But when it comes to enjoying cannabis products, the last thing I would want is hot, irritating smoke, annoying my lungs and making my experience painful. Well, that's where FreezePipe comes in, because you just put the food-safe glycerin chamber in the freezer for a mere hour, enough time to watch a map of Virtus Pro play, and it'll be like the classic Virtus Pro when you used to go and watch a demo back in 2015, because there'll be all the cool smoke you could hope to find, because it can cool the smoke by over 300 degrees. Now, people might wonder what I'm smoking when I talk about MSL or Existence or an XEB as IGLs. But whatever bong you prefer, or bobbler, dab or oil rig, they have them all on FreezePipe's website, where they're also running their 420 sale, because obviously it's April, isn't it? So thanks to the FreezePipe. At thefreezepipe.com, you can use LFN as your code to get 10% off your order. Yes, you can hot take some smoking, but the point that I've made is FreezePipe makes it a cooler way to smoke. By the way, obviously now, people, if you haven't been keeping track of the order, we're going to do a Maui hot take, aren't we? But I understand, every Maui hot take starts like this. Maui's like, when the sun's out, it's warm. And then Kassad just goes, are you insane? What the fuck are you talking about? It doesn't matter what he starts with. Go on then, serve it up. Come on, Maui. Hit us with your first hot take.
Yeah, sure. This one should rile up Kassad a little bit. I know it will. Is that this year so far, KSCERATO is the best rifler. KSCERATO is the rifler of this year. I'd say that there's. I was thinking, should I soften the blow with this hot take? Should I say top 2, top 3, just to give people some leeway? But no, like I know what I'm seeing. KSCERATO is just every single game for Fury. Even when the game plan is just total ass, he is still putting together just incredible games of Counter-Strike for himself. Like it's almost just it's like art agnostic whether KSCERATO is still gonna find success. Like it doesn't matter if there is like this just stupid idea in the T side where Art and Yuri, they're gonna throw themselves at their opponents. Safe is gonna like, you know, be a half okay rifler, and Drop's just gonna do fuck all. It's like KSCERATO is still finding ways to find multi-frags in rounds that are just completely botched. And what I love about what he's doing is that he's not doing what Rops was doing at the end of his tenure with Mousesports, where he's just getting literally zero impact kills. KSCERATO's actually winning like 1v3 clutches. He's winning 1v2s all the time. He's winning so many clutches that it's actually just disgusting. And the other guys I would have put in this is that I wanted to include the 2 riflers I thought were the best of last year, which were NiKo and Axile. But Axile is just not performing as well this year. Just like on some of these Cloud9 losses, like so far at the RMR, as of the time recording this, like I think he's got a sub 1.0 KD. Even on CT sides where I used to believe in Axile no matter what, like because he would always come up with a multi-frag. I'm not seeing it there anymore. And so the only other guy that I would say is like in contest with him right now has to be NiKo. I think if you look only at Hunter's Katowice performance, you would say that he's in this too. But in other events, Hunter just hasn't been nearly as impressive. So if it's like KSCERATO, like eye test wise, also is just. He's just more clutch than NiKo. NiKo plays a little bit more of an entry style, so that's why sometimes his impact is a little bit more wavering, and it's like sometimes in certain games he just doesn't get going. But KSCERATO always finds a way. He just literally every single game, this dude has the potential to drop 30 kills, and he does like a goddamn lot.
Where does that sit with you, kassad?
You just find a way every time to top the last one.
Yeah.
It's just garbage take. That's it. Like even Blame F is a better rifler than KSCERATO.
Hell
Probably has more impact at this point right now. The thing is, like, if you have the best rifler in the world, you don't lose to EG Black. That's one thing.
Online,
you don't lose
online.
to IHC.
It's online.
That's another thing. That's LAN one. But against IHC in fucking play in Katowice, you have to do something, right? You said this year, so I'm counting 2023. So if you look at through the events they played, it was Katowice. They lost to Big, your favorite team. They lost to IHC, my favorite team of Asia. And then they lost, like, in the Pro League, obviously they lost to FaZe, but whatever. It was like an easy game for FaZe. And then they lost to EG Black in that showdown. Was it showdown? Yeah. They managed to win the what do you call it, the RMR thing, and they qualify for the Legends by beating Pain, which is in a good form. But overall, you should not be losing these games. I don't think he has shown not even 50% of the things that he has shown the last year. Right now, he's not even in top 5 in my mind when it comes to rifling. I don't know why would you put him in the number 1 spot when you have like so many better people right now, including NiKo and even Exile. And Exile's problem is Nafani, not Exile. So that's another thing. So for me, top 5, and if I'm being generous right now.
The problem with that is, the saddest part when you actually said that last part is what a fucking world it is for riflers. It's bad enough that the AWP's been like so powerful all these years, and like the fucking there's a million pistols that are strong, and every time you try and AK some guy with a fucking CZ shoots you in the side of the head. If you haven't have all that suffering, listen to what he just said about the top rifle candidates there. The top 3 candidates, guys, here are their IGLs: Huxley, Art, and fucking Nafani. Like, my God, these guys are also just playing on nightmare mode. Like, can I have fucking Carrigan or something? Give me a break. Because I sort of agree. Here's the thing. For this year, you could probably put one of the FaZe players in there. Maybe Rops could go in the mix as a rifler. I think that's probably a fair one. I think what people forget is, even though FaZe's results are very similar, I actually think, like, you could argue that like Rops and Twists are maybe better now than they were at times when they were winning last year. Like, it was more of a committee effort in the past. So I think you have to put the FaZe players in there. The problem is, I actually think, to bring it back though, this is why this is actually way harder than just who is the best player in the world. Because if you notice, like, they're at different levels of competition. Like, G2's in the semis and the final every event pretty much. Cloud9's sort of like, to make a semis a good one for them and they can bomb out. Of the 3 teams, Fury is easily the worst. And even then, like the real problem with the Fury angle for me is this. If I took all the nameplates off, I might agree with you, Maui. I do think KSCERATO's really good. The problem is, though, like, he does, because his team's just worse, play at an overall low level of competition, and his team is worse and all the rest of that jazz. So, and I will add in there, that's one reason I actually do think it's also hard to put up, even though you can be selfish in your playing style in a bad team, the reason why it's not actually easy to farm stats is because you will end up doing things like playing extra maps or playing longer maps or having fucking set, like you do 1 million million 1v2s, but you don't even win the map, and then you go to another one. And like, I've always thought that's why back in the day for me, I knew s1mple was easily the best player, because he'd have to do that on like 3 straight maps and then still lose the series. It's like, you can't even just have like the amazing second map. Like, it's like, right, we won that one, right, guys? We're through. Oh, fuck, I have to do it again. We lost in overtime. Like, when you have to do that, it's really draining. So I think like KSCERATO was mega. The problem is, though, if I just look where people play, I would maybe either go with ROPS for like, if I'm looking at overall package. Axal's still a good one, I think. I sort of agree with kassad. I do think his team somewhat, they put him in hard spots sometimes. And I don't hate the NiP one. Like, I'll always say this, because I do think NiP does more on T side than most of the other rifles, I'll always give him like a little bit extra leeway in that regard. So I think it's a pretty tough one. I think actually right now for me, it's one of the most wide open categories. I don't think there is a clear answer for who the best rifler is. Who would you actually pick, kassad? Who would be your nomination?
Absolutely, NiP, but I'm a little bit biased, obviously.
Just a little bit, just a
little bit. But I have to go for him.
I like the way he even dares to say that, like it's just obvious in it. I don't go on.
The thing is, like, yeah, I have to admit it. Like, I want to be honest to people, right? You know, but the thing is, like, if you exclude that and just look at the facts overall, right? And I think you said it, Tyson. It's not just now. You mentioned it before, and we talked about this before, that he has a lot more engagements and impact on the T side, right? He is actively going for things, not on T side, on CT side as well, going for things rather than the other people. Compare Blame F, right? Who is not doing anything until he has all the information about all the players on the map, except when they're on eco and then he just charges, right? That's one thing. Then you have Exile, who is defensive-minded player. He needs the information, he needs the setup from the inters and whatnot, so he can react properly to it and do his thing. And then you have KSCERATO, who is he's a great rifler. Don't get me wrong. Last year I got him as top 3, top 4, 100%. But this, you mentioned this year, so I was going off this year only in Katowice.
Yeah,
and
fair
all
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, he's also defensive-minded player. Yuri is slightly more aggressive, and Art is super aggressive, but they're not really setting him up properly right now for him to deliver the full potential of his capabilities, right? So if that changes, like a little bit in Furia, like if they get rid of Art and get like into a normal system or whatever the fuck is happening, and you don't get Art calling Yanko stupid because he is pointing out obvious fucking mistakes in their and flaws in their game, which is also his job. The thing is, like, if you get rid of that, if you fix that, I guarantee you the performance of KSCERATO will lift for another 30%. And he will actually be in that contention for the best rifle by the end of the year, because he can do it. I didn't say he can't. He's not doing it right now because of the different things. And obviously their results are shit. Yeah, they qualified, but they lost to EG Black, they lost to FaZe, and they lost to whoever it was, IHC, in one of the biggest events of the year. After like a 3 months break and month and a half long boot camp. No, let's not forget that one. So overall, it's just, I don't think he's right there yet. Like, all jokes aside and everything, he can be, but he's not right there yet. And maybe he will if they make changes and people start using him fucking correctly. That's the whole point.
Yes, I'll just say, like, to bring it back again, I just hope all these guys get a better IGL so we can just see them at their best. So, well, what's your next take then, kassad? Isn't it your turn now?
Oh, is it mine?
I think it is.
Okay, I have a nice one.
Go on.
I think it's gonna be a little bit iffy, but because we are recording this as on the day or the day before the last chance qualifier.
Yes.
So I'm gonna say this: FaZe does not deserve to be on the major. The thing is, like, FaZe,
okay.
yes, they win a Grand Slam. Yes, everything like is fine. It's gonna be good for CS if they qualify because of it's FaZe, it's all these players, and if you look at like that, it's for CS, it would be good, but they don't deserve to be there. Like, I watched the whole RMR, I watched this every single game, every single round of the maps they played, and it was just a disaster. Like, the things on T side, if you go through map, like I mentioned this on HLTV, confirmed. Like, if you go and download the map Inferno against Navi, the T side was something like I wanted to scratch my eyes out. Like, how bad that was. The utility, the flashes are not being used. There is no reaction to the CT setups of Navi whatsoever. Just go ahead and download it, and you will see that most of the gun rounds in the T side, they have absolutely no flashes whatsoever, or they have a couple of flashes, probably one max to finish up the round. Like, and they're not reacting to the situation. Like, if I'm the coach of FaZe, and if I'm Roban or whoever, right? If I'm making the decision, I don't know the dynamic between them, two of them there. But you see that Navi is playing backside on Inferno on A. They're playing pit site mostly after like mid round. So basically they're there until they have smokes, they fall back into small pit, they fall back into big pit, they fall back into site. And that's happening over and over and over. And you keep using your flashes early, your utility early, and then you end up having not a single flash to go into the site. And you are supposed to go into the site to play against electronic, bit. What's going to happen when you enter the site? Doesn't matter who you are and how good are you at your aim. You are going to get demolished if you end up in a crossfire against those players into the site in Inferno or any other site, right? And there is no adjustment. There is no timeout or saying like, listen, guys, these guys are playing defensive setups on A. They're sticking around bracket top middle for the first 30 seconds. As soon as they lose the smokes, they go back. We need to use one flash, one molly, and one smoke to get into bracket. Trade whatever we can trade. Save at least 3 flashes for the actual execute. And that's where Robs comes into play. You don't get to have the AK every single time. The priority number 1 or Inferno Halls player is to have flashes. Why? So he can close the round out. He had 2 extra flashes for the finishing. If you go back to the B side, he has 2 flashes for B side pop, right? B side execute. If you go to the A side, he has flashes to throw from to someone so he can flash for them, or he needs to flash themselves. So the thing is, like, they are not doing anything like that. You can see that on the demo that they have like all guns. Kevlars use much of their utility before they even get any control of the map. They just go and get demolished, and that repeats over and over and over, and there is no reaction to it, right? Their whole T side was just terrible. The CT side wasn't really good enough individually to fix up all those mistakes that happened on T side, and there was no correction. There was no correction in the rest of the games on those issues. So overall, the performance on the RMR from them doesn't qualify them for the major. And that's the whole point. And based on their performance there, they don't deserve to be on the major. That's all I have.
Okay. What do you think, Maui?
I mean, deserve is kind of like where this is a little bit loose, because for their performance at the RMR, obviously because they didn't win, they shouldn't be there. But like, I kind of been of the opinion that certain teams with certain rankings should just make it to the major. So that's where I would draw it. Like, that's why I just think the RMRs are kind of weird, because it is just an open qualifier that includes teams that I think some of them honestly should just get the direct invite, because I think like outsiders, I think, deserve to be at this next major. Obviously their performance did not merit them making it to the next major, but I think that because they're the defending champions, that to me says they deserve it. So yeah, does FaZe deserve it based off of play at the RMR? No, they were pretty freaking bad actually, and they also didn't clutch up against Maus at all.
Yep.
I mean, I was because I was at the Americas one. I couldn't see this Navi game that kassad is talking about, but in the Maus one, I mean, dude, the lack of fragging between a few of the players in that game was just like them. For once, it felt like FaZe were the ones that were cracking, and that's where I was like, oh my god, this is not even the same team that we were watching for the last year, where Kerrigan and Rain will hold a smoke at the entrance of B, and then the Maus throw one flash, and it's like they know where the flash is. They kind of like half dodge it, and then they still just don't get any kills as these Maus players are coming through. I was like, okay, that's just inexcusable at this point. You know, you can't be defending the B bomb site on Inferno with 20 seconds left and not get a single kill. Like and even the players at A weren't even doing that well. It felt like also like Twist and Rops weren't actually holding their own. So it felt like they were just cracking. Yeah, this event wasn't very good for them, but I think that FaZe just deserved to be there, because if you just won the Grand Slam, you've proven to. I think that recent form should actually get you into the major, because I just think we should have the best teams there, and I don't necessarily think that this one-off tournament, even though it was pretty awful what we saw from them, says otherwise. I think that the Pro League win to me says you should just be at the major.
Yes, before you go on, Duncan, just to circle back. The thing is, like, I do agree 100%. They won the Grand Slam. They should have a slot on the major. VP, who were the last major champion, they should be on the major. They shouldn't have to qualify. That's another story. That's another topic for like the system and the whole thing. That's bullshit. They should have a spot there. But I'm just talking about the straight up performance, because everybody's in the same boat and everybody has to qualify by playing other teams and beating other teams, right? And they didn't do enough. If there was not a last chance qualifier, they wouldn't be on the major, and we would have a whole different hot topic right now. But they do have it, and I don't think they deserve it. They're probably going to get it, but based on their performance, they don't deserve it. And I want to mention that round, like, as well, like they're holding the smokes on B and they got shot. It's not just only that. Like, there was a round where they were like 4v5, 5v4, actually 4v5. And they stacked with 3 people on A side, and they leave Kerrigan on B. What's the process there? What do you think is gonna happen? Kerrigan is gonna they're gonna go to B, and Kerrigan is gonna go to get 3 kills. Is he gonna get 3 kills for you? So is that the risk that you are taking? Instead of like maybe you stack 3 people on B and leave 1 on retake A, and they go A, you just back off and that's it, right? Or if you want to risk it, you put Twisted Pit and maybe he gets 3 kills on A, and then you have a stack on B. Or you have all 4 players on the A side, and if they go B, you still have guns and whatever. You play the next round. The gamble didn't work out so well. This way, you have Kerrigan on B. He's gonna get run over 1-for-1 at the very best. Maybe even if he gets 2, it's still not good enough. It's still 3v3 on the fucking B side of Inferno. How do you retake that with a NOP and 2 rifles that have no nades? You don't, right? So those are the small things that get you the important rounds. They have like no control of it. They're not doing them well, and that's why they played bad. And that's why they deserve based on performance to be on this major right now. Like I said, if there wasn't a last chance qualifier, they still wouldn't be there. And it's still not guaranteed they're going to be there. We might see Cloud9 playing against them for the final spot. And they can beat them. Ants as well. Like all these teams that can do it, right? They can do it. You know, if FaZe lost to whoever they lost, B and NiP 2-0, why can't they lose to some other team like, you know, like Big? Surely they can, right? So overall, that's just underwhelming, and based on that, the system that we have, they shouldn't be there. But I would love to see them there. That's a whole different point. Like,
there's obviously loads on this, all these different angles. Like, for example, one thing, this is why the word deserve, like Maui said, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Like, for example, we didn't used to have this extra bracket spot where we gave Europe an extra spot. So by the old system, they already would have failed, wouldn't they? So by that logic, yeah, they literally don't deserve to. And if you watch the games, like you're saying, with the eye test qualitatively, they did play pretty bad. I mean, I'm with Maui. I actually think individually most people played bad in FaZe. Yeah, they had some dodgy calls too. Like, they looked, quite frankly, like they were fucking very nervous. Actually reminded me how badly they played at the last major. It was the same sort of shit. And not just because they lost to Bad News Eagles again. In fact, if you even look, like Maui said there, they still do the thing that basically cost them all the titles the last 6 months, which is when they get to the 14-14 game or the overtime game that they used to always win, they always lose now, with the exception of this Grand Slam one. They just don't ever win those games now. You know, it's like you can actually bet against them in an overtime now. Like, if you look at the flow of that game on the last, if people don't know, the Bad News Eagle one's bad, but the Mouse one's even worse. Like, they had Inferno, one of their best maps ever, as the last map, and they said that like that was like in position to just be won. Like, that's probably the craziest thing about the way FaZe has lost some of these games over the last like 6-8 months, is some of the matches, it's not even just like they're losing, they can't get back in the game. It's like sometimes they're even in the winning position and they just let it bleed out and lose. So yeah, I agree on all these aspects. Yeah, they didn't play well enough. You took the nameplates off, you wouldn't be begging them like, oh please, this team needs to be at the major. Like, we mainly just think that because it's FaZe and it's the CSGO, it's the last minute, it's all the fucking narratives that make us want FaZe there. But I'm also similarly on Maui's train though of like, first of all, one of the reasons why that stat that like, I wish the internet hadn't become this thing where I said jokingly earlier you can omit a piece of information to make it like a take sexier. But obviously the whole point of this show is we then unpack it all and we do say all the context. I hate this thing that basically HLTV didn't invent it, guys. ESPN did this years ago on Twitter, which is you just try to come up with stats that sound crazy, but they sound crazy because you intentionally didn't add the extra piece of information. So they did that stat on Twitter. They were like, Virtus Pro is the first ever team to win a CSGO major and then not even qualify for the next one. Key detail to add, this was the 3rd time ever anyone could have ever done that. That's pretty fucking significant. There's been what? Isn't this like the 19th or major or something? Like, you make that sound like everyone else was a genius and only bomb-ass James didn't make it. By the way, guys, go back in history. There's some like happy, envious lineups and NiP teams that could easily have fucking bombed the next major if they'd had to really qualify and go through like this, where you go online into an RMR, into like, mate, there's plenty of major champions would have been like every now and then on touch and go or would have blown it. So first of all, that's a bit whack anyway, because like in that case, VP is only like the 3rd team that could ever have done it anyway. And then secondly, the reason I bring that up though is because we did always take it for granted in CSGO. If you come even top 8 at the major, you're the next one. That's just for granted. It's also the reason, by the way, why most of those stats of like, and then Device and Dupree were in all them. It's like, yeah, but Yeah, everyone who's top 8 gets to the next one, mate. Like, that's actually not as crazy. It's only because of the current status it seems more epic. And then I'd also go back to, I agree with Maui. The big problem I have is, I actually have a controversial take, which is I wouldn't just do the classic, like, right, you won the last one, you automatically in the next one. Because essentially, I just want it to be the circuit that decides it anyway. So if through the whole circuit Outsiders had been crap like they have, then maybe they don't deserve to be here. But the point is, FaZe automatically would qualify, wouldn't they? Like, if you just look up the placings they've had. G2 also, like, for me, I'd at least take, like, the top 8 in the scene or something. Like, if you look at the circuit we have, it's pretty robust. It's not like you can play one tournament and you're going to be top 8. Like, now I know the tricky thing is, when would you take the ranking from? That's all that stuff is to be figured out. But I just feel like everyone who's watched any 1v1 sport, like Formula 1 or fucking tennis or whatever, they just know that system works. You have a circuit, you play it, you know roughly who's good, you qualify people to a championship or a year-end tournament or whatever. It's just a good system. Like, it also encourages, by the way, just being good at the game and playing a lot of tournaments and having a good set of consistency. So, although I guess I sort of agree and I disagree. Like, I disagree on the more abstract ideas of, can we reformulate the scene or how should you qualify? I do sort of agree though, Kassad. Just because I like FaZe doesn't mean I'm just going to say they should be there no matter what. Like, at the end of the day, like, the whole point of qualification is, like, it's actually you're supposed to win in the game. Like, if you can't win in the game at some point in time, that does hurt too.
Yeah. Also, this ranking system, like, it's so broken. Like, our ecosystem is completely broken. We have all these like TOs, like Blast, and then you have like ESL, and then you have the Valve independently running, and then PGL taking some of the majors, and it's just like makes no sense. Like, you look at the FIFA at least, right? They have the official rankings, FIFA rankings, and every other like football association is connected and under that like main FIFA association, right? And that's how it should be with us. You know, that's where you have the universal ranking. People are, it's what's crazy about me that you have like, you go through the top 15 teams right now on HLTV, at least 10 of them have the players in their contract, like have incentives based on the position on the HLTV ranking. Like, how stupid is that? Like, yeah, I'll get you 3 more K this month if you are top 5 HLTV. Like, how the fuck does that make any sense? Like, the points there don't qualify you for any tier 1 events. Like, if you want to qualify for Blast, you can't. Obviously, because they're all partners. If you want to qualify for ESL, there is like their rankings, their own ranking system and world ranking system. So if you want to qualify for the major, who the fuck cares about the HLT ranking? You have to like go to the open and close qualifiers and RMR. So it's all broken. Like, it's all broken when it comes to that. And nobody's paying attention to that shit. We're just paying attention to some other stuff. Like, you know, it's just a bunch of bullshit that we need to fix. Otherwise, this game is going to go to like much deeper shit than it is right now. But that's a whole different topic.
Right, here's what we'll do. We'll just break now straight into my best hot take, because here's what I've done. I've sort of structured it like they do those American infomercials late at night where they sell you the product. And if you know, like, I won't give it all away, but if you know, the whole point is, the part of the pitch is that they say some insane shit, but wait, there's more. And there's always more if you don't know. That's the whole fucking gimmick how American TV works. Because the trick is, they actually, essentially, if people don't understand, I'll give people a little bit of break the fourth wall. What they're actually doing is showing how effective sales techniques work, because essentially they've made you believe on the first instance, like, oh, I would already buy it. And then they're like, but wait, there's more. So you think, oh my God, more value. And at the end, when you got all the value, you're like, oh, I'm a genius for buying this. Even though if you actually like calculate at the end, like actually the extra steak knives and stuff, like actually that all totally makes sense in the margins. And it's obviously a functional business. Like, they're not actually just giving away the fucking farm. So I'll bring it all the way back. And what I'll do here is, this is going to be the most, you should enjoy this one particularly, Maui, because it's incredibly meta about the contextual discussions and discourse in esports. And the genius at the end is, I've essentially tricked you all into letting me take the most obvious, clearly, objectively correct takes. Like, the easiest, like, this is like buying Apple stock on day one, mate. Or like, it's just easy, it's obvious. But it's going to, because of all you idiots in the community, I'm going to end up being right. And this is going to be a hot take. So are you ready? Level 1, here's the first hot take. There's levels. This is like Inception, mate. Level 1 goes like this. Commentators and analysts do understand what's happening in CSGO games, where, from like how a pro might think about a situation. Can you believe it? That's crazy. That's fucking nuts. What? Are you insane? What are you trying? No. Guys, the reason that's hilarious, like I said, you see how meta it is, Maui? Because that's the most obvious, like, basic fucking consensus take. Like, anyone with a brain would obviously acknowledge what I've just said. These are literally, by definition, the people who watch the game more than anyone else, including Bozo people from Ukraine who are really good with the orb. They're not watching the game like we're watching it. They're also, by the way, are you ready? If you're actually a commentator, you're doing it live, you fucking moron! You haven't got time to pause and go, well, I would have thrown a small. No, you do it live, mate. There's no pause. Like, unpause. No, but I need to talk. No, unpause, keep talking. Like, first of all, s1mple couldn't do any of that, by the way. Any of that. By the way, don't go because it's in English. No, I've spoken to this motherfucker about CS. He's a very smart guy, but he would need time like anyone to unpack an idea, to ask, what do you mean by that? To set up a game scenario, or if you're 4v4, yeah, you can't do any of that if you're a commentator. So already, right, I've got you on number one. That's a hot take, apparently. Because remember, I didn't do this, mate, but I've been told s1mple's right about everything, and every take he has, you notice people try and find a way he's right. So there's one hot take, but there's another level. Here's second level, right? We're going to go to the next level of the hot take, which goes like this. s1mple, are you ready? This is fucking, ooh, get ready for this one. You might not actually be able to handle this one. Are you ready, Kassad? This will blow your mind, mate. s1mple being really good at shooting people in CSGO doesn't make his opinions right. Oh, what am I even talking about? I've lost my mind. You know what, at this point in time, bring in a padded cell, like fucking, see you guys, I'm off. He shoots people the best with the crosshair, so he must be right about everything. How much is the tip, s1mple? Fuck if I know, $4. He's right again. $4 is the tip. Don't bother calculating that. What's his tax? Don't know, bloody ask him. Like, what are we talking about, guys? You guys in the community have actually lost your fucking minds. If the logic goes, and of all players ever, by the way, it's so mad you've picked s1mple. Because if you don't know, one of the takes I often make to be a bit mean to my fellow analysts is that actually they all got tricked by s1mple in like 2017. And they all used to say he probably should AWP less and let Guardian AWP because he's a traditional AWPer. And he plays a bit too aggressive sometimes and puts himself in bad situations. Essentially, if you want me to translate that, s1mple actually, up until a certain point in his career, was probably someone who made quite bad decisions at times in the game. He just had like 2.5 times better fucking skills than every person who was in his peer group. So for him, they either initially, it just wasn't that big a deal. And then eventually, once he became like completely cracked, the joke is, what are actually the wrong decisions for 99% of players become fine or even right for him. But he can't get that, by the way. He really thinks, I'm not joking, that like every person should play how and he's figured it out. He really doesn't understand. He's essentially Wilt Chamberlain, like a 7-foot giant athlete, telling like a fucking guy who's 6 foot, like, why are you taking all these outside shots and passing? You just go inside, bump, turn and do a post move and slam it in the guy's face. Like, you're a moron at that point in time. But oh, don't worry, every fan, because he's 7 foot tall, he must be right. Wilt Chamberlain, he's 7 foot tall. He must be right about everything about the game. He's taller than us all. That's what you guys, and are you ready? Oh, that's right. There's one last set. There's the steak knives at the end, Maui. So here's the steak knives in this take. Notice how I'm cranking up the Schofield meter here. The third take that this builds into, like true Inception, I'll end there. Are you ready? This is going to really hurt some feelings. Most pro players don't understand the game on the level s1mple is bragging about at all. And in fact, it is only the ridiculous conceit that they do, which makes pro opinions so valuable to the community. Like, there's a reason, if you notice, that I do show like Stratbook, and it's not just because of the name, that I have people like Carrigan, Alexi B, like MSL. I don't have on like fucking Scream. So how do you set up all those fucking entries? I don't have on like just some fucking random play. Oh, you're really good at spraying, so tell me, what did you think the strat was? Like, most pro players don't actually do that. Like, I'll give credit to the legends of the game, because you know what? Fair play to the true legends, by the way, who aren't like modern day people with all these big egos. People like, are you ready, for real, motherfuckers like Forrest will totally admit, if you ever talk to them, oh, I didn't understand half the shit like Card and the in-game leader were doing. I just did my shit. You know, like I had my role. In fact, I was comfy with my role. I didn't want to know what the IGL's doing, by the way. That's not my job. Like, it actually looks like it sucks. He's the one who stays up all night watching the demos. I just like, you know, go to bed, wake up and get my aim warmed up. Like, fair play to the legends, they get it. Because I'm so sick and tired of this. If this was like Carrigan, by the way, or Blades telling me this, I'd go, okay, yeah, let's sit back, listen. I'm not having s1mple tell me that, mate. I'm not having a guy where it's like you were just born with the genetic silver spoon so far out your fucking mouth. Looked like you was some human centipede shit. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm not having this guy. So there you go. There's the triple hot take. It starts with commentators and analysts do understand the game and what's happening on, so not as good, not necessarily as well, but they definitely can break it down that way. Like, because that's why I said on Twitter, by the way, he said it was everyone. Mate, You know, fucking Maniac's been in like semis of majors. Pimp was like one of the best players in the world in 2013. I'm not having this fucker, by the way. Pretend everyone's just me, some guy who never played the game. Shut the fuck up. And then the second hot take was s1mple being the best player doesn't make him right about his opinions. And then the third hot take is most pros just don't actually have that super in-depth knowledge. That's like, I think you're even being unfair to the IGLs and coaches by pretending everyone understands the game on some super deep level like that. What do you think? They're pretty spicy. You see what I mean, though? Because they could either be just obvious or they're really spicy. So let me see what you guys think.
Well, I'm glad you went with this because this was going to be my second hot take, but you unpacked this with more levels than I was actually even going to address. I was going to go for the first one here, so I'll just kind of like get into what I was thinking about it with the whole thing about s1mple saying, you know, commentators, analysts, they don't know what they're talking about, where it's like he acts like there's some hidden layer to the game that like nobody's seeing, and sure, he understands certain micro situations better than other people do. Like when I've seen s1mple play, he's also so frequently to me the most creative player out there because he'll go for some interesting peak that I don't see other pros go for, but it's also based off of the fact that he has the mechanical ability that he thinks he's going to hit the shot, even though if you really think about some of the micro plays that he goes for, it's like, this probably didn't even put you in the best situation more times than not, but you just knew you were going to hit the shot, and if you missed it, you were going to look really stupid. But like the amount of times that s1mple looks stupid when he's playing this game, very, very slim. Like 1 out of like 50 maps is he going to make like one play where we're all just like, what was that? You know, but like his mechanics bail him out. So that's like the main part of this for me, where it's just like he when he says that thing like commentators and analysts don't know the game, it's like that's such a generic statement that also is just so dismissive of the people that are also giving people a reason to watch the game. Like it's also like, I don't know, I mean, I like to, you know, crap on players here and there, but like this ecosystem is also like built up by everybody that's contributing to it. So for him to say that stuff is also just like no sense of what people are actually doing to make it so that his gameplay is appreciable. Like if he doesn't think like, say, you know, Anders is able to like, doesn't know the game, but Anders has given him so many great highlights, like that would have been just like him clicking his mouse in a server if he didn't like build up those situations for everybody to get excited in those. So I just think it's super tone deaf from s1mple. Oh, first of all, the other stuff that you're saying, actually, you know what?
By the way, that is a banger point. If fans don't get it, Maui's point is a very shrewd one. It's like the joke. If people don't know, I did do this. When on my website, I put that comedy section where it's all quotes, but I treat half of it like a bit lighthearted and frivolous. I purposely put the s1mple one where he said I'm an idiot because I put Thorin is an idiot, and then I put s1mple, you know, the player Thorin said was the greatest player of all time. Because the joke is, it's like a recursive joke, isn't it, Maui? It's like, if I'm an idiot, then me saying that doesn't mean much, does it? No, exactly. You're right on that one.
Well, yeah. And I think where s1mple, the last little bit I have on this is just that the point where s1mple, or really most people, where they say you don't know the game, I always find myself reducing that to, oh, so you think that situation should have played out differently than it did in the game, yet the caster or analyst probably built it up like this was supposed to be the result. Like, again, this is why prediction games are generally pretty useless in like just if you're just going 1-for-1 predictions, because it's like, you know, it's not our job to always be like, what do we think is going to happen? You know, we'll use past data and past what we've seen in it before to say like, oh, this situation is favorable. Like if I see a 4v2 and I think that the 4v2, like they all have like USPs and the 2 people have guns, I'm still going to give it to those 2 guys, but you know, we'll see those USPs sometimes win in a professional match. And then people will probably be like, oh, like what? It was a 4v2. He doesn't even know the game. But it's like, you know, we're giving context to everything, and sometimes the casters in a moment, or the analysts, because they have a shortened segment or because it's in the live round, can't explain all the minutia that leads them to their thought process, so people will just write that off immediately. And I just think like people that talk like that in general are just like so like polarizing. I don't know, I guess they just try to be like incendiary sometimes with the way that with what they say, but it's like if you really break that down, you don't probably mean that guy doesn't know anything about the game. It's just that you also couldn't find the words to describe that you find his opinion to be dissatisfactory.
By the way, that is why we are all terrible in esports. Like, I don't think there's anyone who really knows nothing, but it's like if you just disagree and say he knows nothing about the game, it's like, you know, you don't even grant them like a basic human with a brain.
It's not even good faith.
I know, exactly. What do you think, Kassad? Where are you on this one? Because in theory, Kassad just in his career has been more on the coach player side, so I wonder where you're going to come down on this.
That's the thing. Like, I'm thinking like both ways. I think he's right on some situations. And I think he's absolutely wrong with someone. Like, because like when I was a coach, when we were competing on the highest level, playing majors, all this shit, right? And I would hear, like when I watched the VOD, and I would hear some of the commentators and the analysts break down what happened. It's completely the opposite of what actually happened. And they don't understand the depth, or they don't have the time. Then I figured out later, then bunch of situations you don't have the time to actually explain the depth. Yeah. But in my mind, maybe s1mple doesn't get that. Like, for example, us as an analyst, you go to the desk segment, and you have very little time to explain in your couple of sentences what you saw in the best possible way that's so entertaining and, educational in a way. So it has any depth or meaning, right? And an actual analysis there. So you have you start talking about something, and you have the producer like, all right, let's segue to the DHL segment, and we have an asset and an interview with God knows what, and, you need to hurry up. And then you just bouncing some ideas sometimes, and then you end up saying things that maybe are for a listener to the player, to the coach that I was before, comes out that you don't know exactly what you're talking about. But to say that they don't know anything, it's just nonsense, because they do know a bunch of stuff. There are people who actually understands the game. You mentioned, Maniac, he was playing a lot, he understands things, but it's a little bit, difficult. Also, s1mple doesn't understand that if you lined up 1,000 players in the first 200 teams, that and try that all of them try to do what he does on the server, there's going to be at least 99.9% that won't be able to do it.
Yes.
Like Maui said, if any of them tries to do that, they're going to look stupid, and then we as analysts are going to say what the fuck are you doing? This is so stupid, right? And he doesn't understand that, but because for me it's much easier to understand him and where he's going from, because I was on both sides. I was on the broadcast desk, and I was on the server, for years. So it's just I can understand where he's coming from, but the way he said it sounds like he's like, yeah, fuck you all, you don't know shit. Yes. That's that, right? And there's also the art thing, when he's trying to explain some bullshit on Inferno where they made a mistake, and he's calling Yanko dumb. That's just Yanko or anybody on the desk doesn't call anyone dumb. Doesn't call anyone stupid. They question your fucking performance and the things that you're leading. That's their job. That's what they're paid for, right?
Yes.
They're bringing the entertainment and the education and the show to the viewers between the maps, and they're like Maui said, the commentators are hyping you, bringing you to the heights, and all these things that when you make a highlight play, they're the ones that are making it even more legendary than it is, right? So there needs to be some sort of respect when it comes to that. Like I said, I know because I was on the both sides, and I see how things work on different things.
Sure. I've got a little bit more we can say on this. First of all, this is why you'll never know till I'm gone, boys, but this is why you'll always miss me on the desk, because one thing I always did is, one, you see what happens with these pros. You give them a fucking inch, they take a mile. You give them a little bit of a break, because the difference is, I absolutely, kassad, would on a broadcast say, for example, outside of the game, s1mple's a fucking moron. He can talk about the game really well. He's actually quite an intelligent player. I've always said he could maybe be an IGL if it wasn't for the fact he has probably the worst temperament ever that an IGL could ever have, and can't conceive of the fact people are worse at the game than him. But in terms of actually, if he breaks down what he was doing in a game, he is very intelligent, I will say. But the idea, these people, they go way too far with that concept. But one thing I will add is this. I even get why players get triggered by this, because I've had friends that were pros. One thing, cool things about having friends in the industry in different roles is they'll even tell you sometimes, essentially, you interface with them as a professional. So, for example, it's why, Get Right flamed me in a very famous example that everyone always brings up, but they don't know he was actually my friend even then and still. It's just because when you interact with them as a friend, it's a different person. He'll even say, no, I was just triggered about that shit. You know how it is. I didn't know where we were at as a team. But then when they're a pro, they're thinking differently. So what I'll say is this, right, is one of the things that they're doing when they get triggered like that as pros, when they're only thinking from their perspective, is like kassad says, they watch the broadcast and then they hear you talk about their team. And it's not even that you're always wrong. It's that you say a detail that isn't totally accurate. And so what they do is they go he doesn't know what he's talking about with our team. And then they take that, and what they make the mistake of is thinking, right, that means they're not even bloody doing anything. They're just making up storylines. But no, it's like kassad said, there isn't time in the day. The problem they have is, here's the concept. Now you'll understand what I mean by this. It's the difference between having a horizontal, broad understanding of the scene brain and an incredibly deep vertical understanding of one team. The point is you're in that team. So obviously you know every part about your team, the protocols, the roles. You also know all the things we can't know, like why you chose that person to have this role, or why this guy backs up instead of being the guy who goes in, or why this guy even shit, by the way, we can never know. Like why does Apex get the AK on some T rounds when they got a low buy instead of Ziwu? Like for all we know, maybe there's actually a good reason, but we can't know that, so we have to speculate. So we just think, it's fucking nonsense, isn't it? Like it's probably just fucking egotistical, or does he not know Ziwu would get the kit of the week? We all do that. So first of all, you're thinking that we can do it. This is the mistake, pros. You're thinking if we really wanted to, we could get that vertical knowledge. We can. And also, one thing that is unfair, you've got to admit, and all pros, if you ever put it like this, will admit it, is you're also going to follow the scrim shit that you do in scrims and all the other teams do in scrims. We don't see the scrims. So how can we go off that? Like the worst one is I've had pros for real be bad on a map in pro play, like they have a losing win rate, but then they're like, but in scrims we're winning them all. It's like, how am I supposed to know that, and how would it be relevant to this broadcast? Like, how mental would I be if I just started talking about how you're actually secretly cracked out on the map? We can just never see it, and you have to just trust me. Like, that would be mental to say on a broadcast. But you're right. Objectively, you might actually be correct on that one. And then the last thing I'll say is this. The reason why that whole approach just sounds silly if you're like simple and you haven't thought it through, and especially you haven't done this job, here's the key point, is because this is the other thing Kassad, like he sort of explained there, when you actually do this job, almost all former pros go like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was actually. Like for example, one thing most of them admit is what I said about the horizontal lodge, is like, I've even had them say this to me, where I don't even pretend to have been an ex-pro. They'll actually say, oh, I used to think you didn't know what you're talking about, till I knew you had to have an opinion about every player and every team in the whole scene on deck like that the second someone asks you. Because remember, right, that is shit on a broadcast. If you sit there, you've watched all these games, and then someone goes like, and so what about Infuriator? Like, how is Drop's role going? And you go, I haven't actually studied 50 drop demos, so I'm afraid I can't give an opinion. Like, that would be garbage. You know what I mean? You just have to have one. So what people I don't think understand, this is why I'll bring it all the way back to what I always explain I actually think being an analyst is. Being an analyst is why in England we call it a pundit. It's not the idea you're right or you know better. You just have a coherent perspective that you can explain in whatever section people want to see that day. Does this team better? What would make the best idea? The point is, it's consistent, it's coherent. If you watch, you have a sense of what I'm going to say. You don't know exactly, but you have an idea of it, you know. To me, that's been doing the broadcast role. So I think Simple's got lost in the weeds on that one. But it's why I also say it starts as a hot take. It's actually just quite a reasonable fucking analysis. I thought we actually did a pretty good job there, breaking down why pros and the desk see things differently. And I like Kassad says, in a way, he is right, but he's also wrong because he doesn't see our perspective, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, like, for us in the broadcast, you know, once we get asked the question about a certain player, we reply with analysis that we see, like on the actual screen, on the server, or whatever, like the information that we have, and we say it. Like, that's not personal for us, but for you that I'm talking about, it's personal because I'm talking about you. So it's personal to you.
Yes.
And if you see something that you don't agree with, if you see something that like maybe I didn't have the full information and you know that, and it's not totally accurate, then you're gonna take it personally as well, and then you're gonna go out and say, these fuckers, they don't know anything. I invite all these fuckers as well, players, to just sit down with me. Let's have a discussion about the game. Let's say I called out FaZe today, Carrigan, Robin, whatever, right? About their T side. And if they don't agree, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Let's yes. Everyone hear it. Let everyone hear it. Like, let's have a discussion. I'm watching a lot of Joe Rogan lately, so okay. That's why I'm like, you know, all this like, you know, sure. Debates and everything. But the thing is, like, you could just go ahead and say it, like explain instead of saying like, I don't know what to talk about. And then we get the fans, oh yeah, he said that, he must be right.
Oh, mate, the amount of seals is mad when Simple says, everything he says is right. He's the best, you know. He's the GOAT. Like, you're so feckless, guys. It's mental.
Because he shoots people the fastest.
I know, exactly.
He must be right about everything.
That's right? The worst part about it, by the way. It's like I say, I know it sounds mad because everyone's going, but he's the best. But to think how he's the best, though, that's what's infuriating. Guys, literally, one of his best clips ever is him just pressing the left mouse click and going, let's hope. That 1v2 against Fnatic is him just going,
yeah.
If the game says it, then it's not like he was a genius and made that happen. He just clicked the button. And also, it's the other thing. I could sort of, it still wouldn't make sense. But if Prime Zipniks told me something, I would be like, he is really smart, though. The way he breaks the game. That you know, someone like that can play with no aim, although he's sort of proven that wrong recently. But in theory, he can. Like, I know, because if people don't know, this is the one last thing I was going to say. It's also why Richard used to bring up that hilarious example, which, to be fair, because I'm having to go from memory from like 2014, I don't know if actually it was true that literally was what happened. But essentially, if it didn't, spiritually, this is how it was in s1mple's team. When Richard tells that story that in Flipside, there was like a round where it was someone like Bondik or Marklov, like died on fucking Mirage B, and s1mple just did that thing of like, that is not how you play that. Watch this. Then he went and took that guy. He's French now, apparently. He went and took that guy's role. And then when he was playing, he just went to that guy's spot. You can imagine they run the site because he just, there was a bad player there before. Because it's simply just like, like fucking headshots, 4 of them. Then he goes, that is how you play this role. And then he goes back, right? And then obviously the joke there is, in his mind, he's like, I taught him, didn't I? And it's like, you didn't teach him anything, you moron. Like what did you teach him? Like, essentially, if you can understand that story, you know exactly what I mean about this example of s1mple. It's like, bro, nobody can do what you just did. That's actually, it's worse than you haven't shown me what to do. You think you've shown me, but you've shown me nothing at all. In fact, you've given me an impossible fucking example to replicate, haven't I? Like, because I'm not you, and I can't just cap them all in the head when they come around the corner. Like,
you try doing that, and you end up even dumber.
Yes.
Like you try, okay, I'm gonna do what s1mple does, and then you end up being rude.
Oh, mate, Kassad, there was a perfect example of this. Did you see that comment that Huxley said? Because this is why I always thought people like Nico, they can definitely break the game scenario down for a mid-round, but they actually aren't the greatest IGLs. Did you hear that comment Huxley said? Where he said there was a round where they were on Inferno. I can't remember who they were playing. It might have been Heroic. And basically, there was a moment where like someone was like boosted on Inferno B site, and some like CT's boosted on top of like the fucking flower pots or something. And Huxley's going to flash him, right, like late in a round. Do you remember this story? And then Huxley goes, so I get the flash and I point out and I kill him. And then Nico goes, why you need the flash though? Just speak out and kill him. And he had to sort of like turn to Nico like, yeah, I hit you though, am I? Because that's what you're essentially explaining to Nico is my AK crosshair doesn't. Yeah, no, my crosshair doesn't automatically go to the head and then stay there the whole time. Like, I can miss. Like, because in Nico's mind, his logic was like, you're just wasting flashbangs. Like, he's like some old-fashioned dad, like, just fucking go on your own with no coat or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's a great example. If you can get that example, that's perfect.
It's actually it's perfect example,
yes.
Right? They're not. He even said it like we're not playing the same game, Nico.
Exactly. Yes.
Like that's absolutely right. Like you try playing the same game as fucking s1mple, and then you end up losing every single time.
Yes.
You use your strengths. Like his strengths are like raw skill, fucking aim, and everything. Like timings, everything that he does right.
Yes.
That's his fucking strength. Like if he wants to be an IGL, you know where the team would end up. Fucking nowhere, right?
They'd be bad.
That's like the same thing. Like goes for like. He took the example of the best player ever, right? But let's say there's some lesser players. Like imagine putting Jax as the IGL. Like, how would that go, right? It's the same way. Like this would be shit because he doesn't know what the fuck is he doing.
Yep.
Like, but if you tell him, like you mentioned, like listen, we're gonna create this situation for you. Once we hit the site, you do that, whatever. Like, and he's like, yeah, okay, that's my timing. He sits in upper tunnel, does too. They do something, he walks out in a 1v1, and just because he's fast, he headshots someone in a 1v1, right? Or you tell him the other way, like, listen, we need you to create a distraction. We're gonna throw 4 flashes for you. Smoke here, you just run out. You're gonna get flash for whatever, and then you just need to run out to kill people. All right. He doesn't need to know what happens after. He doesn't need to know what happens before. He just needs to know what needs to happen when he needs to go into the site. And that's your explanation how you teach an entry player to play. Just go there. You don't need to depth. You don't need to sit there in 2 hours of theory and just listen to me blab about fucking the big picture of the things, but he doesn't understand it. Like, it's just...
By the way, even though this is like only 10% serious, it does almost make me feel like that's why it's totally logical why Apex isn't actually that good as an IGL. Because think about it, right? He's essentially someone, Maui, who's just been conditioned. It's like he was actually in real war and he has PTSD. Like, and a whole entry fight. Remember, he was a hard entry as well. He's just been playing CS for years, where to him, CS is you run, you're immediately blind, deaf, and you just move around like this, right? And you're waiting to get 1 second that you can see. And if you instantly headshot someone immediately for no reason. Because remember, one thing I always loved about Apex's style of shooting is it perfectly fits entry frag. Because he's not actually like a god aimer. If you ever watch, he doesn't have like the config tracking him, but he just flicks. All he does is flick. And if you flick and you hit, you get the random headshot like on the bench guy on Mirage, then you're in the site. That is like essentially the best gamble you can take as an entry. So you do all that. And on top of that, half the time as a raw entry, you're just like, right, well, that didn't work. And they're like, good news, we're trying it again. In you go. And so like, no wonder at the end when he has to call, he's just like, oh yeah, just keep entry. be in the same site over and over again. Yeah, oh, we're all dying. Doesn't matter. Keep going, man. Go forwards. He's done some like World War I trench or something. I know.
Exactly. The perfect example I'll give you from my team. We had Jacob, right? He's a similar player.
Yes.
Like you can't put him as an IGL, but he's an entry fragger. He's a good entry fragger. He's a good clutcher too, right? And the thing is, like, we had this strat on Nuke, right? We called it like, fuck, I can't remember, Phelps maybe, something like that, right? And then you throw the normal default outside smokes on Nuke, like the old ones. And basically, he's running along towards the secret area. And when he hits like close to the stairs, he gets a certain flash or two, and he swings left through the smoke and try to surprise someone, right? And that play was super successful. You get somebody like after you do 2-3 defaults with smokes, try to sneak in secret, and then you pop off with that play, and it works perfectly, right? And I don't need to explain to him what happens after. I just need to tell him, listen, if you go and kill one guy, you just sit or go leather base. Or if you die, doesn't really matter. So when I'm explaining this round on the fucking theory session, he only has to listen to that part. Right, he doesn't have to sit there and listen to like what I'm talking to JKS about, like potential like post plant. Where do you need to use your smoke? Where they're gonna come from? Where they starting routes? Who the fuck cares? He doesn't care about that. You have the strat that calls fucking pop through the smoke. You hear a flash in your headset. You swing and fucking kill or die, and that's it. And that's how you use the player's strengths. If I try to explain Jakim or Jax or any kind of entry fragger that's like truly entry frag, Yakin there, whatever, right? All this like dynamics, so that he's gonna get confused. And that's how you get confused players in your team. That's where you get like things that are not working. Try to explain this like depth to rain. He's not gonna fucking do it. But if you give him a simple role in the simple strat, like you get the flash here, you need to like watch this angle. They're probably gonna meet you right there. We're gonna flash this side for you, smoke this side of you so you cannot get shot. He's gonna say, okay, I'm going, and then he's gonna deliver a headshot. And that's the system that should be in every team. Like you cannot expect all these players to have like all this amazing like game sense and fucking everything. That doesn't exist. It's just fairy tale. So, yeah.
Do we have another hot take? Is there another one? Has anyone got one?
Did we cover all 3 of your layers? That's the thing.
Yeah.
No. Well,
Did
that was a long one. I have one that's kind of like looking towards the future of the game. I kind of want to hear what you have to say about it, you guys. It's just that, okay, so when CS2 comes out, I think 6 months after it comes out and we're playing with it in competitive, I would say that at most 3 teams that are currently in the top 10 will still be there. I think that this is gonna shift things a little bit more than people think right now. I think the game right now, when I play it, like there's little things with the mechanics that just feel slightly different, and I'm not sure if that's just the tick rate or what exactly, but I think that the people that are like, I think this is a really great time for teams that are in the tier 2 space to jump ahead, to leapfrog some of the teams that are in the tier 1 space, because this is kind of based, this whole take is based off the concept that like what we're seeing at the RMRs is tier 2 teams are playing some styles of CS that actually look a little bit better than tier 1 teams, or at least in the short term they are. And I think that that's because they've been grinding. Like I look at a team like 9, for example, that looks actually like they have a really solid style overall, but tier 2 teams still like, or tier 1 teams that is, are getting caught off by it. And I think that when CS2 comes along, like the only teams that I would say are probably going to survive and stay a top team are Heroic, Na'Vi, and I'll just say like it could be a couple teams here, could be FaZe, or it could be Maus. And I kind of look at the age of players, and I think that when I look at like Maus, for example, they're one of the youngest teams in the top 10. I think the younger the teams are, the more likely that they are to survive the culling that CS2 is going to actually bring on, because I think that there's just a couple mechanics that are a little bit different, and if you're not on board right away, you're gonna fall back pretty quickly. And I think that's almost kind of like what happened with the online era, where so many legacy players were unseated because they just couldn't keep up with the fact that a lot of these kids are just playing like 14 hours a day, and if you're not, you're just gonna fall behind.
What do you think, Kassad? What do you think the difference will be?
I think the first we changed up the game, which is, I think it's all right. I don't think there's anything wrong with CS2, because it's gonna take a year before we actually get to play it on a right level. Because if you remember 2013, you remember how the game was. It was similar to this. I think the game is like in much better shape than CS:GO was in 2013. It's still a lot of things, like the obviously the tick rate is just garbage right now, and the sound is completely different. It's better, much better sound right now. Even I noticed, who is like, I'm not really competing, not really playing, rarely playing. It's just I noticed that the sound is quite different. I think the more skilled players and more like talented players are gonna benefit from that quite a bit. When it comes to the teams that are actually right now, I don't think it will change all that much. I don't think we're gonna see a massive drop off in like players like, okay, I'm giving up, I'm retiring after this, whatever. Like, it's not CS:GO, it's another game. Also, what I think we're gonna have another wave of talents and the pure CS2 players, like kids that are gonna be coming into this new game, right? And there's gonna be a completely new wave of those kids, like 15, 16-year-olds, whatever, right? And they're just gonna overflow the competitive scene right now, and that's another topic, but that might take back the NA scene in shape. But before we actually do all of these things, we need to like take care of our ecosystem, right? Because you will see 9 in team that qualify for the Legend by beating G2 and Vitality, right? And they're going to be playing the major, and where exactly will you see them next? They can qualify for Blast because they're shitheads with their style system. They can maybe qualify for ESL events, but they need to play constantly well and have the good world rankings, which is not going to be easy if they bomb out of the major. And they can maybe qualify through Pro League, maybe, just maybe, but the competition is so big there and there is so many spots that are reserved for this garbage teams like EG and all this shit that's happening with the franchise league. So we need to take care of the ecosystem to have more competitive scene right now. It needs to be unified rankings. We need to get rid of this franchise shit that doesn't really help anything, or you expand it to fucking 32 teams and have 16 partners and 16 qualified teams. Make it work somehow. I'm sure if you sit down, we can find a solution to actually, help the scene this way. Because right now this is not sustainable. You have so many talented teams, but just look at these Polish guys. Even the team like, the what's the British team that qualified?
Into the breach.
Into the breach. Yeah.
So even look at BNE, Into the Breach. All these teams, they have talented individuals, but like all these teams, like they cannot get into this position to constantly play tier 1 events. It wasn't like that before the franchise league. We had so much more entertaining events, so much better events before, with like much more, competition rather than when we have like this franchise shit, right? That doesn't really. I remember like people were talking shit about the PEA in America. That's a whole different fucking topic. But all I'm saying, we need to fix this ecosystem bullshit with like all this franchise stuff and all these things, so we can have all these new players wanting to actually get into the circuit, into the teams, and then trying to be better. But without that, it's gonna be the same old shit, just a better game.
In general, to rewind it on Maui's take, I would agree in the sense that, like, here's the funny thing. As far as I can tell, I don't think CS2 looks like that drastically different, like a game engine. Like, it looks like a lot of the fight. Like, quite frankly, that's the area I always say I'm so unimpressed by all those clips. Like, when people posted that Nico clip on, like, the second day of the beta, like, look at this, he just peeks out on Dust 2, gets like 4 AK. Like, yeah, it just looks like normal CSGO Nico. Like, yeah, he has the best AK ever, I'm aware. Like, he has really good aim, it locks on them. Like, what? They look the same. Everyone's going like, oh, he's good at the new game as well. It's just the old game with fucking a lava lamp in CT spawn. What are you talking about? Like, as far as I can tell, the smoke's different. Has anyone even implied, by the way, the guns are different? And almost no one has. Almost everyone says the same, right? So, like, people comment on stuff, and even half the time, like that. I even thought a funny one was, I saw that clip as well where Smoothie fires a Tech 9, goes, it's firing really quick. It's like, you always did that, you moron. You know, well, that gun, you just don't seem to get like certain weapons in the game. It's the same with the Glock, you idiot. A lot of pros, but here's a little detail for you, simple. A lot of pros don't actually even seem aware. You can actually just press the button like that on the Glock and it shoots faster. A lot of pros actually don't seem aware of that and try to fire the individual bullets like it was real life. Like, I've always thought that's a mad aspect, by the way, because if you've never done that old school strat in 1.6, you can do a Glock rush like that. If you all rush together and you all slam the button like that, you just fire 1,000,000 bullets into him, like, you get a free kill. It's a little cheesy strat, but that's an example of like weird things in the game that you just don't think about, you take for granted. So even though the game doesn't look like it's fundamentally that much different, so in theory, like, most of it should correlate. The point is, you don't need it to be changed much for it to swing everything, because think about it, for teams, this is why the CS 1.6 to CSGO switch was so crazy, because if people don't know, something like the top 3 1.6 teams just kept the exact same lineup from 1.6, a different game. And so what fucked them was, if even two of your players are not just like not as good, but way worse, you're just done as a team. Like you've got three good players at that point in time and two people who are just feeding or don't understand the meta or haven't put the hours in. So even that's a drastic one, but you can imagine something equivalent. Think about a team like FaZe. Dude, it didn't take much of a fall off and suddenly they were like 8th in the tournament instead of 1st, you know. And then I'll also throw in as well, think about even in CSGO, when you made weapons like the Org and the Krieg better, you immediately changed the balance of who was good at the game. Like everyone knows the most famous example ever with the Krieg is because Nico wanted to keep using the AK. All of a sudden, like about 20 people could be as good as Nico in the game because he was using an AK and they had a Krieg. Like that's just how it became. And then we all remember. I always mention this, by the way. It wasn't just online that killed a lot of those riflers. It was that the Krieg went away. That went away right as online happened, if people remember. And a lot of people did drop off a cliff and become like half as good or just a good player. So the key thing for me is it doesn't take much. And I also think people really underestimate because of legends like s1mple and Device and Nico who had all those years where they were top 5, top 5, top 5, top 5. People think that like if you're just really good, you'll always be the best. No, because think about this, right? When we examine the game, we obsess over the top 10, top 20, top 50 players. So we talk like there's these enormous gaps. The difference between being 1st and 10th is not really that crazy most years. So all it takes is a few tweaks and you could go from 1st to 10th. Like I can tell you as well, by the way, just as a random aside, if you follow any game like a League of Legends or a Dota where they change the meta a lot, you know this principle already. Like it's not on you. The game just changes almost underneath you and you just wake up tomorrow and you're just not as good in the same way as if we like doubled the AWP nerf. Obviously, immediately AWPers would be less powerful and suddenly riflers would be better. Even though the rifler did nothing, he just woke up and someone else's gun changed. So I sort of agree overall, Maui. It's actually, it starts as a hot take, but actually I think it's quite a logical take. It's like, I think actually, yeah, when the new game comes out, a bunch of players won't be as good, so their teams will all change in form. Even what teams are good will change a bit. I actually think that's the part people are underestimating. It's why I'm just going to cherish the end of CSGO, because you can't know how CSGO 2 will start. And I'll just throw it as a final one, because I can actually segue this if someone doesn't have anything else. I have another take I could segue this into, which goes like this. I also think if you look at games like VALORANT, which are in the CS sort of like style of game, when you take talent and you move them between games that are drastic, especially, it can be, there's sometimes no rhyme or reason. Like there are people in VALORANT who are among the best. If people don't know, Ye was the best player in the world in VALORANT. He wasn't even close to like the best NA player, never mind CS player. And he played a bunch of years in CSGO. So the other thing I could segue into as a hot take, because I actually think this is a one that people have stupidly thought about with CS2. I think it's a valid take. A lot of the excitement of CS2, you'll have seen it online, was all that idea that it's a new game, right? Because you saw all those people where it would be like, you know, like JDM was like, look, if this game really is like a new game, I'm coming back. And there would be all like legendary players like, maybe I do a comeback. And it's like, bros, first of all, you're not doing a comeback if it's like CSGO because you're just not good enough at CSGO. And then I'll add in, here's the hot take. I don't think, unlike fans, that this changes anything about VALORANT, by the way. I don't think any of the VALORANT pros come to CS2. Like, why would they? Logically, if they don't play CSGO now, that means they either are better at VALORANT, which case they'll stay playing VALORANT, or they prefer VALORANT, which is they're not going to come over. And since, here's the thing, if it really was CS2 and it was a totally different game, I think some of them would try. But I think what will happen is, unless they just suck in VALORANT, why would they go, right, let's start the grind to CS again? Like, remember, you're not going to switch like they did to VALORANT and tomorrow have a contract. You're going to switch and you're going to have to grind for a year. Because people forget, the ones that came back were the ones we had to accept because they used to be so great before, like Nitro and Daps, etc. Just have too much to offer. You have to accept them if they come back. But here's the point. If you're someone like Tens and you came up, not that he's coming, but I'm just giving an example. If you come to CS tomorrow, you're not actually getting picked up, mate. Like, you actually have to grind. You have to prove you're really good at CS2. And quite frankly, that's going to be so much work. I don't think you're going to do it if you didn't just stay in CSGO. So there's a slight hot take for you. I actually don't think that's one thing I think people are too excited for. They think CS2 is going to like unite all the FPS and all the counts. I don't think it'll change that at all, mate. I think it'll be the same pros. I don't think there will be like all those guys coming back to CS. That's just a naive dream. That's just a dream, guys.
I don't even know if I want these people back in CS.
Who knows, right? Yeah. By the way, we don't need them. That's the other cool thing about the VALORANT thing to me is like, since a lot of them were like lower tier people or washed pro, you can just have a career. That's cool. It's like wrestling. You don't have to be in WWE. You can be in the other shit as well and still have a career. That's all right. If people want to watch it, it's all good.
It's also important, like the way they introduce the CS2 into the different regions also, because I would like to, as much as I don't really care about the VALORANT players that went, and I don't want them back. Like, who cares? If you want to come back, if you don't, who cares as well? Like, nothing really changes. I just want the new kids, like the new kids that are gonna be, talented.
That's a good point. Yes.
To go instead of to Valorant, to go to CS2.
That's a pretty good point, actually. Yeah, you want the next generation. Yes.
That's what I want, right?
Yes.
The next generation of talented kids to go instead of the Valorant, to go to CS2. And that's where we need Valve to do their job. That's where we need Ors to do their job. That's where all these people who are, unfortunately, a bunch of them incompetent, to do the good job in actually, establishing the proper ecosystem.
Oh, mate, actually, this ties back into your point, because if you think about it, the real point you're making here, which is a very shrewd one, is it actually doesn't matter that we have the current generation of CSGO pros. If all the next FPS talent plays Valorant, we're not going to have them. And in fact, there's a reason why they would, guys, which is the examples that were just given of Into the Breach and 99 and BNE, etc., which is if you make it too hard in the circuit to have a spot in any of these leagues, because let's be real, the problem with Blast is this, because there's always a really elite team that isn't in Blast, you're never going to get through the showdown because you're going to play Gambit or Vitality or Heroic. Like, you're not going to beat them if you're fucking 9-9, aren't you? Like, you're like, that's just asking too much. So if you are those teams, if you were that player, think about this if you're a fan. If you were that player, like, now you've obviously put all your hours in CSGO, you're going to keep going and try and make the major. But if you could go back in time, you'd have just started Valorant, wouldn't you? You'd go, wouldn't I have a fairer chance in that ecosystem? So I agree, you have to shore up that. That's almost a leak we do have in CSGO, which is that the newer player, it wouldn't make as much sense from the start in CSGO. It's going to be really hard to get to the top.
I think the ecosystem in Valorant is pretty hard to break into now that they franchised out, though.
Sure.
Like, just saying, like, if people are looking at both open circuit or both circuits right now and saying which one's more open, I actually think that CS is more open because like nine, you can just make a major, you could get sticker money, and you never had to go through this arduous process of playing like a challenger thing and then like, I don't know, breaking in through that, like one spot through that whole challenger league or whatever that is. Like, I don't know. I think the major, and it's like the majors are twice a year. Hopefully they're keeping the same system. If you think you have 2 cracks at it per year to get your, tier 3 team into the major, you could pull off a BNE.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, like, you want to play Cologne, you want to play Katowice, you want to play the Pro League, you want to play all these like IEM, Sydney, whatever, the Rio, whatever it is. You want to be there. But you can't be there if you only have a chance to qualify for only one event, like fair and square, and you need to like. It's just not right that, like, for example, EG. I'm not taking him again, but it's just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, they get the invite as a local hero of for the IEM Dallas. Like, are they a local hero? Like, are they the only NA team that deserves that?
Yeah, if anything, they should be there as like the fucking. It should be like in medieval times, kassad. Instead of a hero, they should be put in the stocks. You know that thing we had in England where you put your arms in and you're locked in, and then everyone throws like rotten tomatoes at your face. That's what they should do. They should bring along bloody evil Jesus, have them do that. But here's the thing: that'd be unfair to some of the players. I'd put the fucking execs in there. Have the gamer doc there, Nicole, and then everyone. The old rotten fruit, all in jest, of course. Make sure it's nice and soft. Don't rotten, but don't hurt them or anything.
The thing is definitely. The thing is definitely. They are not supposed to be there. There's a better teams in America that that can be there. As shit as that sounds. Like, I know I'm saying this because we as Renegades were invited to IEM Sydney, but we were the best team in the region.
Yeah.
We were the 10 top 15 team for 3-4 years in a row. So that is the only team that you can invite as the local domestic heroes. Like, EG getting that spot, why? Because they're partners with TSL. Like, they're playing the Pro League for 6 seasons, and they're dead last, they can't beat anyone, and they're still there. Like, why? Because their org paid money to be there?
By the way, it does crack me the fuck up, though, that they built that whole premise of, like Astralis style, like, we're going to do, like, 3 teams. And then they were like, yeah, the problem is, like, none of the other players in the other 2 teams are appropriate to promote, though. It's like, well, then what was the point of the team? Like, what? Like that's the part that everyone else hasn't clued into, that I'm just like, this is madness. What was ever the point of the 3 teams? Like, what was that? Especially because everyone jokes, but it's almost true. One of those 3 teams actually did, a lot of the time, look better than the main AG team. So essentially all you did is pay those guys not to compete for the same opportunity, as far as I can tell. Like, what a weird fucking whole
I can understand before we finish, like, when it comes to EG, like, I can understand the guys from League having this vision that was completely stupid and
exactly
ridiculous.
Yes,
I can see where they're coming from. Like, maybe this work here, but balance is there.
I know.
Like, the guy was in CS for such a. How did he buy that? Why did he buy that? What did they sell to him? So he's like, this is good. Like, why didn't he say to the guys, are you ridiculous? Are you insane? Like, we can have academy team that's going to be playing in the academy league. And maybe we can buy some talents and put them in that academy team and transfer that team to Europe if we have extra resources to go in boot camp, play this Cash Cup, play the CCT League. You know, I'm sure everybody of these tier 2 organizers would love to have an EG brand, even if it's academy team, in their tournaments, tier 2 events, tier 3. Let them like polish there, and maybe we get like somebody pops up, we promote him to the main team, and that's how you do your research. Instead of they have like 4 coaches, 16 players, and they're paying way more and getting nothing, and then they fire them all. So this is what I understand. Why did Valens buy that shit up?
Yes.
I was thinking like, dude, you are in CS for a very long time. You won the fucking major.
Yeah, for sure.
You were in a great organization that's Cloud9 for years. You are a smart dude, educated dude.
Sure.
How the fuck did you buy this?
The reason it's hilarious, though, is because if you don't know, just like s1mple, Valorant has his own reason that automatically he's right about everything, which is like, what is it that they say, Maui? Is it that they say he was an aerospace engineer, or do they actually say, like, worked for Google or something? Don't they have some line that they always say about him, like he did some mega job or something?
I think he studied like comp sci at Stanford, and then he went to Google or something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Here's the joke, though. Like, they say that, like, as well, just because he worked for Google, like, he knows everything. The joke is it looks like he just Googled how to make a CS team. I thought it was pretty good. Whatever. It wasn't bad. You know? That's not bad. That was decent sort of...
I got like that.
There you go. There you go.
Oh,
It's all
fuck.
good.
That was a good one. That was a good one.